So thanks everyone for joining us today to our First Nations Education Leadership Series, Empowering Indigenous Education through Indigenous STEM. And as Simon said, my name is Tammy Webster. I'm Director of Equity, and I am from Kigan-Zibi Anishinaabe as well. I've come with a background in education, classroom, and kind of the consulting role. So that's a little bit about myself. Joanna?
Just a little bit more, as Simon's already shared. I'm a former classroom educator, and I also worked at the Ministry of Education here in Saskatchewan. I live in a community just outside of Regina, and inquiry-based learning, hands-on learning has been a passion for me my whole career. And so bringing that to students and teachers and helping to empower them has always been a passion of mine, and making sure that we do that in a respectful way, with ask lots of questions and incorporate multiple worldviews and perspectives. I've always believed, and there's not always one answer to everything, and exploring that together has always deepened my curiosity to learn about the world around me. So
Awesome, thanks. So at Let's Talk Science, we are a national charitable organization. We've been around for over 30 years, and we help youth fulfill their potential and prepare for work and citizenship in a rapidly changing world that's underpinned by science, tech, and innovation. There's a lot of research and reports now who are saying that STEM careers is really is in high demand, but there's not enough folks who are pursuing STEM. So as we kind of go on to, I'll go into the next slide, where we're looking at some of the coursework, and understanding that in this graphic, by the time kids hit grade 12, those who are pursuing STEM actually gets to be a really small number. So we can take a look at some of the stats there, saying, only 3% have taken computer science, 47% have taken math. And so this becomes a bit of a challenge to say, what can we do early on to help those students pursue STEM? And so if we can go to the next slide. And so from a First Nations side of things, one of the things, we know there's a number of extenuating circumstances, but those statistics for grade 12 pursuing STEM courses is amplified as well for First Nations students. And I know it's kind of hard to see the text around this, but the top dot is the early years. There's a huge fascination. Children are very curious around STEM. And as they start going through the different grades, or kind of like chunking of grades, we see that at the very bottom, that second last dot, is when we start seeing the post-secondary, and students, First Nation students, are not pursuing post-secondary. But kind of back mapping a little bit, we really get to see that the, I guess, interest, passion, and desire happens in those early years and in those formative years of like the primary junior grades. And so that's kind of where Let's Talk Science has really stepped in, is saying, from a K-12 side of things, how can we help with STEM? Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So a little bit about who we are. This is our report from last year. Our upcoming report is in draft and will be available. Once it's kind of published, you can find it on our website. That's my little shout out. So we can take a look at some of these numbers, and that really does speak to kind of the reach that we have and the depth of programs and offerings that we have. So in the map, you'll see the red dots, and that's where we have what we call our outreach sites. And those outreach sites tend to be housed in post-secondary institutions. And those outreach sites will go into communities to kind of deliver in-class resources or activities for students. Now, the blue dots, as you can tell, Let's Talk Science likes data and maps. That's why we wanted people at the beginning to kind of map their location. So what we can see is the blue dots represent all of the communities that we have been into. And to date, it's been over 1,600 communities across Canada. A lot of our resources are done both virtually and in person, which is why we're trying to get a sense of, what are some of the virtual needs or challenges that are out there. We've had more than 900,000 people access our digital resources. So we do track our data to see, what are they accessing? What is it used to folks? It gives us a chance to kind of predict some trends that might be coming up. We also said that we have over 1,200 classrooms who participate in a lot of our national projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. And with 1.4 million online sessions, and as we can see in the top corner of the graphic, with approximately 3.6 million page views. So all of our resources are highly accessible, and based on these numbers, we're saying that we are making an impact and that folks do like what we have to offer. So we're really excited about the things that we do. A little bit about the outreach, and then I'll go to the next slide, is we do go into remote areas. That's often a question we get asked, is saying, do you come up to our community? We're a flying community or something like that. And we say, yes, we do. It does take a little bit more logistics and planning. We may go for a longer period of time, with the various travel constraints or understanding flight restrictions or whatever that looks like. So, but we do go into some remote rural communities for sure to deliver this, to deliver the programming. All right, so let's head on to the next one. So when I was hired at Let's Talk Science, a lot of the work was really around equity and understanding kind of Indigenous perspectives. So for me, I really enjoyed the work because as a First Nations educator for years, it's nice to be in the system where folks want to do this work and are really making the efforts to do this work. So once we kind of mapped kind of this commitment and who's involved to Indigenous and equity deserving learners, we have a lot of influencers that kind of inform and help guide the work. We have our board of directors, we have our own value system, we have our staff, volunteers, our teacher leaders, some of our partners, and you can see the partners below in the logos, who have a real strong focus and intentionality to working with First Nation and Métis youth and communities. We actually have a equity and a reconciliation plan, and I say actually because I know a lot of organizations, might say they do equity, but we have formalized it and made it accountable to staff, and to kind of say, hey, this is what we're doing and how we're doing it. So there's a lot of focus around making sure we do it right. We also have a lot of, partners and advisors, some formal, some informal, who do this work. And there's always part of that intentionality to say, okay, let's get some other folks to look at this when we start to design programs and resources. And I guess kind of the wrap-up statement for this slide is what works for one community will often work for others, especially if it's been well designed and well thought out. And we know that there's sometimes little tweaks and tailoring that has to happen. But for us, a lot of the design around our programs and resources is really to say, how can we make this the best possible for everyone? And that is usually a different approach, because some folks will say, well, I'm only going to do it for this group. So we take a little bit of a different lens on this. But really, it's all about having kind of the same goals in mind: STEM education, career, workforce preparation, and really changing, I like to say, changing the trajectory of the future for many students. Okay, let's go to the next one. So specifically around reconciliation and kind of what we're trying to do and what we are doing is that we do a lot of our work in authentic relationship and partnership. And I don't say that, loosely to say it's authentic. As someone who's First Nations, who has lived experience and who's done work in the education system, I can truly say that it really is about authentic partnerships. And so we're guided by two of our plans. The fact that I was hired for this role, I think speaks volumes. We collaborate, we work with a lot of different voices, experts, knowledge holders, elders, educators. Like we really do collaborate with a lot of folks to do this sort of work. And the work that we do is perhaps a little different, and I say in a good way, um, because with our like you'll see just a glimpse into all the things that we offer, but it's not always a separate resource for Indigenous education per se. We do have those for sure, but what we're doing is we're doing a lot of weaving of material. And I'll talk in a little bit about some of the examples of where, it could be a standalone unit or a resource or a program, but then, we also embed it in other ways. Um, so it really is about weaving that knowledge together. So yes, we have a huge suite of programs and resources. We want to amplify, support, collaborate, co-create, and work with partners. And that's kind of how we ended up. I shouldn't say how we ended up. That sounds terrible, but how we, got together with the First Nations Education Administration Association, saying, "Hey, let's work together to see what we can do to kind of make a difference." Um, so this is just a really brief overview of our resources, kind of the broad categories of what we deliver and what we can provide. Um, so, and as we've talked a little bit about it, there is some familiarity. Um, whether I know this might sound kind of not the best, but I say go to our website and get happily overwhelmed with what we deliver and offer, because it is quite a number of resources. And we understand that as teachers, as an educator myself and Joanna as an educator, that sometimes there are barriers to delivering STEM or to teaching STEM. I was fortunate enough to have a background in science, so I was very comfortable doing it. But hearing colleagues, a lot of them had said, well, I don't do science. I don't know how to teach science. I don't understand enough. So we know that there are a number of barriers to encouraging STEM. And then Joanna will speak in a little bit more to around the professional learning for teachers. But what I'll do is I'll kind of touch on some of the things that I guess are kind of maybe student focused. I don't know if that's the right terminology. So if we can go to the next one, Joanna. All right. So what I have here is just a couple of samples of some of the things that we deliver, that we have available. So under one of our projects, we have this thing called Clothing for Climate. And it's a great hands-on experiential project where kids get to understand kind of the role of clothes, and especially around climate. And in this Clothing for Climate, um, I had mentioned earlier, sometimes we have kind of like standalone units for Indigenous knowledge and perspectives, and then we have other ways that we embed it. So in our Clothing for Climate, one of the ways we embed it is that in one of our videos for this project, we actually have some visuals of, a couple First Nations kids, with the braids, and they're working with colleagues. And from a kind of an inclusive side of things, that's important to have for kids to see themselves, working in these different spaces or collaborating with different folks. So we are intentional about how we embed and how we provide with our resources. And that's for all equity deserving communities, is we make sure that it is there for everyone. And then I'm going to take a look at some of our resources. Now, it's not listed, but if you go to our website, we had some resources around modeling the solar eclipse in the past summer when we had the eclipse. And it's called a 3-part math task. And within that, there are additional resources. And some of those resources are the Indigenous perspectives around solar eclipse. And so we make sure that all folks can see that knowledge and that education within a lot of our work that we do. And then the example below the resource kind of image is some of our Indigenous career profiles. And this one is from Renee Tukane. And what we do with these is then we also have an activity around this where students can kind of say, hey, what is out there in terms of careers? Who are in this field? And so our career profiles has a really broad, I guess, accumulation of profiles. So we have some academic researchers, we have some medical practitioners, we have folks who are in the trades, we have entrepreneurs. I think we even have a couple who are from the Land Guardian program. Um, so we do have a really big, I guess, resource of these career profiles that folks can look at. We also provide videos, some videos around topics. So kind of combining the Clothing for Climate, like a project or a resource with our career profiles. One of the videos that we have under our tab on the website for climate is from a community, a Tuktoyaktuk community, and they're called the Erosion Monitors. And it's part of the Community Climate Resilience Project. So we showcase that sort of information to say this is where we're seeing this work and how it's felt basically across Canada. And that last kind of section on outreach. So if you recall from the map early on with the red dots or the larger dots, we have outreach sites, and we have over 55 plus outreach sites. And one of the new, I guess, outreach sites is a local organization in Kitchener called Anishinaabe Outreach. They're an Indigenous-led charity, and they are now one of the newer outreach sites. So they deliver outreach to kind of some of the families that access Anishinaabe Outreach for supports. And then they also do other outreach in the community, and they partner with the two local universities for any sort of outreach. Things we've done in the past, and we still kind of do at occasion, but as an example of something we've done in the past is we have this program called STEM Story Time, which is kind of early years. And we had used Sunshine Tenasco's book called Nibi's Water Song to talk about water education in the early years. So again, we look for many opportunities and ways to bring knowledge and information forward. One of the other programs we offered last year was, and it was kind of a pilot program we started, and this was through our Ottawa U, Carleton U outreach site, and it was a mentorship program up in Cree community. And the intent to that mentorship was to say, how do we blend kind of the two world views of Cree knowledge and Western knowledge? So they picked the topic, and again, it was all self-directed, or not self-directed, but directed by the community. They wanted to take a look at snares and their fishing nets. And so by the end of that program, the students got to see kind of how the traditional Cree knowledge was actually seen in a Western context, and kind of vice versa. So, some of the comments that came from students after that program was like, hey, this is really cool. They often felt isolated being in a remote community and having their own knowledge, but to kind of be able to say, hey, this knowledge is actually very valuable. It's, good science, STEM knowledge. The kids really felt confident after that and felt empowered after that. So all of these are just a snapshot really of what we offer. And I know Simon had mentioned earlier that everyone will get kind of some resources and whatnot. And so we'll be sure to include some of these resources and links to them. So again, just a snapshot, and my little shout out is that there is no cost to any of these resources that we do. So, you can jump online, download them, sign up for things. Again, no cost, no gimmicks, no strings attached. Now I sound like an infomercial for sure. So I'm now going to pass over to Joanna, who's going to kind of walk us through some of our professional learning program.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Excited to share a little bit more about our professional learning, and I'll be the other salesperson like you, Tammy, and just say, in addition to all of the things Tammy just spoke about that are completely free, our professional learning is also free. There is no cost to participate in it, and so I'm very excited to share a little bit more about it and our process and some other things too, and hopefully it'll be something you'll be interested in checking out afterwards. So professional learning at Let's Talk Science is one of our core programs. We provide customizable and self-directed professional learning with opportunities to join communities of practice, and earn micro-credentials and learn new teaching strategies that can be used right away in your classroom. So we're all about, as a teacher, I want to be very practical. I don't want to learn something that I may not use until next year. But we'll go in and use right away and make it really relevant to what I'm doing. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what that means. So we've organized our professional learning program into a program called Learning Pathways. And we wanted to be able to recognize teachers and the time that they spend investing in themselves in professional learning, with micro-credentials that they can earn and either just do 1 or 2 sessions, but they could do multiples and stack towards being recognized ultimately as a STEM certified educator. And we've created a lot of different ways that educators can participate within professional learning to meet their personal learning goals, focus on their different grade areas or maybe a topic of interest, and make sure we can support them in many ways, virtually as well as in person. So we'll take a little bit of a look at that. Within professional learning, we offer an ongoing blended and connected experience. So we want to make sure educators have access to professional learning, either in person at, a professional learning day or focus day. If there's a group that want to learn together, we also provide either webinar type learning opportunities, also more in-depth workshops that can last, a couple of hours. We also offer self-paced courses, and a lot of our virtual workshops are recorded and educators can access them on demand as well. And we also do something that is quite unique to Let's Talk Science. It's something called a co-learning broadcast. One of the things as an educator, we recognize time is always a problem for teachers and how to fit professional learning and make it a priority in our schedules. And so one of the things that we do is we do something unique called co-learning broadcasts. It's an opportunity for teachers to learn alongside their students. And it's an opportunity to model, even for students, that we're lifelong learners as educators. And there are opportunities to view learning experiences. We film right in a classroom, and then you join live with your class. You learn alongside our facilitator, and we also offer things to do with students before and things to do after. So you get to kind of practice some of the learning strategies and utilize some of the resources we share with your students afterwards. And we have thousands and thousands of classrooms that participate in this every year. We do it in partnership with the Ministry of Education here in Saskatchewan that broadcasts it to every school and First Nations school in Saskatchewan. And then they provide opportunity for every school in Canada to join as well. And it's been a really popular program for us for the last 5 years. So those are just some of our different methods of delivery. So when I say we have a variety of methods to interact with professional learning, that's what I'm talking about. Just a little bit more of a glimpse into how we develop our learning pathways. This is a high-level overview of how we develop each area that I'll talk about in a moment. But when we look at how we develop our learning pathway sessions and courses, this infographic provides you with a high-level overview of that process. Developments move through 3 key phases: brainstorm research, crafting, developing learning, and then a final polish clean. And we don't do that in isolation. We don't do that just within our organization. We do that in consultation and in cooperation or co-creation with multiple people and organizations. And this is overall in all of our professional learning. We work with classroom educators to make sure what we're bringing forward is relevant and useful to them. We work with the Royal Society of Canada as well as other researchers to make sure that we're bringing relevant and correct information and resources that students may see in universities, or as when we're talking about artificial intelligence or other things, everything is really correct that we're doing. And then we also work with industry experts as well. And we also work in partnership with elders and knowledge keepers on a number of our different developments. And we involve these folks not just at the beginning, but throughout our process as well. So as you can see from this infographic, we spend many hours in our development. They're not just done in a weekend the day before we have to present, but they're sessions that we put together and then we have available that we deliver multiple times throughout the year. We have over 100, or well, currently 100 teacher leaders who are facilitators, I'll talk about in a moment, that then have input into these sessions, but then go and facilitate them with their stories and expertise for us across Canada, as well as multiple staff from across Canada. So we try and make sure that there's a balanced perspective from across the country and not just one curriculum or one perspective from one province, but there's all of those perspectives are included. So you can see there's a lot of people involved in our development. As I mentioned, we have over or approximately 100 teacher leaders right now. These are current classroom teachers that have applied and have been accepted into our program to be our primary facilitators. Our staff also will facilitate sessions for us, but our teacher leaders are really our primary delivery mechanism. We're always looking for more teacher leaders or facilitators to work with us. It's an opportunity to join a community across Canada, from all communities across Canada. We're continuing to recruit more. So if there's a teacher, maybe you yourself are interested in joining this community, we're always excited to welcome more teachers into our teacher leader program. The other thing that teacher leaders get to do that in addition to facilitating and providing input and all of those things into our sessions is they are welcome to begin local communities of practice within their community with educators that they want to work with on topics of their choice related to STEM. And then we provide supports and resources for them to work with those teachers. They're also invited to join national communities of practice to connect with other educators and learn what others are doing in other parts of Canada so that they can then bring that as potential examples or get inspired or maybe inspire others from things they're doing in their community on different topics within STEM. And it's a very popular program across Canada. We're continuing to recruit. There's a link to our map there, but we'll provide some more links in that information we'll be sending out after this session. Just move on to the next slide here, organizing my different screens. So our learning pathways, there's a lot of content and a lot of things we do at Let's Talk Science. And so what we've decided to do within our learning pathways is organize all these areas into 4 areas of focus. So all the content, learning strategies, and different things have been organized into 4 areas and then have sub areas underneath. So just at a high level, I'll share what those 4 areas of focus are. So areas that you can explore as an educator or your educators could explore are STEM cross-curricular learning, where we look at literacy, the different areas that you could bring in to look at STEM education in a cross-curricular pathway. And then also we talk a lot about climate under the Sustainable Development Goals. And those are the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations that have a lot of opportunities to go a little bit deeper into STEM learning in the context of world examples and making things really relevant to students through real world examples. STEM focused learning is the one that's probably the most obvious. That's where we dive a little bit deeper into 4 subpathways focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Again, like Tammy said earlier in our resources, we try and weave Indigenous ways of knowing into a lot of those areas. So they're not always standalone, but we really encourage our participants to embrace and explore different worldviews. And in that one in particular, it's something that is asked for. So that's woven into those 4 pathways as well. And our globally connected learning, this is one of my favorite areas. This is where we get to focus on fostering reflective teaching and learning alongside our students, really demonstrating and modeling lifelong learning, and then also dive a little bit deeper into the importance of worldviews and embracing multiple perspectives. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. And then our last area of focus is our technology enhanced learning. And that's where we focus on the impact of technology and how we can leverage it to learn in different ways that we couldn't do before. And so those 3 areas are technology and pedagogy. So some of the pedagogy behind the use of technology and where it can fit in. Problem solving using technology, which is one of my favorite things. So it's not just technology for the sake of technology, but leveraging that technology to solve problems. And then digital literacy, which is a huge area of importance for youth and teachers to understand the full gamut of digital literacy, the role of digital citizenship and ethics and other things involved in that. So that's our technology enhanced learning. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into one pathway here or sub-pathway, and that's our worldview set, because I think it's a good example of how we've worked with others to develop one of our big professional learning areas at Let's Talk Science. So within, if you can visualize this graphic under the worldview pathway or under the globally connected pathway, we have our worldview sub-pathway. And with that, here are the goals that these are for educators, not for the students. The worldview sub-pathway will allow educators to explore how to cultivate a learning environment where diverse worldviews are honored, integrated, and supported. And the different outcomes that they have to meet in order to get their micro-credential in this area is to recognize the benefits of diverse perspectives in STEM. So there isn't just, one perspective, one answer. We have a lot of things that we need to take into account. Examine the impact of various worldviews on one's perspectives. And so recognizing self and our place and how we connect and relate to information and the world around us, as well as identify learning strategies that support the integration of diverse worldviews into STEM teaching. So we provide opportunities for teachers to explore worldviews in different ways. And this one, we leveraged the funding from the Government of Canada that we received to support climate change education, and really use that funding to develop this pathway with a heavy focus on Indigenous ways of knowing and climate science and education. And it's one of my favorite pathways. And if you check out nothing else from Learning Pathways but this pathway, I strongly encourage you to do that. We'll provide links afterwards. I'm going to provide a quick overview and mention of the collaboration that took place for this pathway. So as you can see from this map, we worked with a lot of different individuals from across Canada. As a national organization, we wanted to make sure we weren't just sharing perspectives from one community, but that there was multiple perspectives. It's also framed really well in our learning pathways that these are perspectives or knowledge that people have been willing to share from their community or from their background, and it's not necessarily transferable in every community. So it's an opportunity to learn from others and see that from a community and see what others are doing from across Canada. So you can see that a number of people that we worked with here are represented on the map. As you dive deeper into, especially our self-paced course, you get to meet some of these individuals and hear from them and hear their voices directly. So some of examples include Dr. Sean Lessard, who's an associate professor of secondary education at the University of Alberta, and Taylor Galvin, a land guardian from the University of Manitoba, James Dixon, a Cree culture teacher from Wasapi, Quebec. I've probably mispronounced that. Apologies. Sarah Jim, a land-based restoration and educator in Victoria. Elizabeth Helena, Indigenous scientist from Winnipeg, and Simon the Scientist, who's a young YouTuber, but also passionate young man from Winnipeg, who's an Indigenous science promoter, I guess, a lover of science that likes to try and encourage other kids to pursue science. So those are just examples. There are others on this map that I didn't speak to. So just a quick overview. You're welcome to scan this QR code if you want the more in-depth 13-page document, but this is a quick map to show you some of the different learning opportunities. So as I spoke about before, you can do short learnings. We call lightning learnings or webinars. Those are 30 minutes. There's some examples of how you would meet the different outcomes within the worldviews pathway. We have longer collaborative sessions that meet all the outcomes within the worldviews pathway. There's a self-paced course that we have hundreds and hundreds of people signing up for now in English and French, reflecting on Indigenous science. That one I highly encourage you to check out. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this course. We've done a lot of work to help bring Indigenous voices to life in that course. And we've gotten a lot of really great feedback across the country about it, and are really proud of it. And then we also have a couple of co-learning broadcasts that we did in partnership with Muskeg Cree Nation here in Saskatchewan. We went to their school and we actually created those with the school and with the culture teachers and others within the community to really showcase land-based learning and learning about trapping and other things, and how that the need to make, sustainable choices and really showcase how they teach and model that. Very popular broadcast for us. Educators from across Canada really appreciated them sharing their story and modeling that for us. That was done with a 4-5 class in Muskeg Lake. And we did 2 broadcasts. Those are now available on demand in our learning management system for you to view or to view with your students. They're really great resources. I guess I skipped ahead to this slide that I was going to talk about. I don't know if we have time. It doesn't look like it to look more in depth into these, but you have links to explore these afterwards. I strongly encourage you just have to create a free account in our learning management system, and then you can self-enroll and check out these courses for yourself. Just one other offering that we do isn't micro-credentialed, but we use as an opportunity to bring different perspectives and voices into STEM education. It's something we call Coffee and a Keynote. We do this a few times a year on a Saturday morning. It's a very casual learning opportunity, but we record them and make them available on demand in our Inspiration Corner. And here's some examples of some of the Indigenous voices that we welcomed into into Coffee and a Keynote in the last couple of years. We have Monique Gray Smith, who did the adaptation of braiding sweetgrass for adults, which you may have read. She did the her topic was weaving braiding sweetgrass for young adults. So that's the book that is the one for youth, and bringing that into class around your dinner table. So talking about conversation, choose a really fantastic, well-attended Coffee and a Keynote. We had John Corbett, who's Métis educator from Alberta who now works in BC, and he talks all about how he worked on bringing beading into computational thinking and creating programming around it, and then being able to make keyboards in Cree. And amazing educator, very interesting talk. Simon the scientist was also one of our guest speakers. We really enjoyed working with him in the development of our Worldviews pathway, and so we had him be our closing speaker last spring, and he brought his youth perspective to STEM education. He's definitely one that I would encourage you to watch on demand. And then upcoming in November, we'll share the link with you, is Ryan McMahon. He's going to talk about innovation with GPT and Indigenous story weaver. And so looking forward to hearing Ryan's talk on that one. I haven't seen his talk yet, so I can't say how fantastic it is, but the topic that he's going to explore, I think, will be really interesting. So those are some of our past that you can watch on demand or upcoming opportunities to hear some of our speakers. I'm going to invite Tammy to come back because now is our time for questions. I don't know if you have any questions. I just saw Randy's comment here about Simon having his grandsons vote for the best. So I can see that Simon is fantastic. So either in the chat or here in Mentimeter, we invite you to ask some questions. We hope we were able to share some of the different resources and opportunities in our programming and a little bit more background about that.
So are there any questions, or are they all answered?
Everyone's overwhelmed with all of the information that we just shared with everyone. So
I'm gonna go back and change my my vote on how much did I know about Let's Talk Science.
Well, maybe so I can stop sharing my screen. I'll just share our last one, and then we can just do questions in the chat afterwards. We just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for letting us be a part of this workshop today and for taking the time to hear our story and hear about our programming. We are going to be in person at Inspire and at some other conferences across Canada this year, and would love the opportunity to meet with you in person if you're attending any of them. We will share information. I know Claire's just shared some here, but please reach out to Tammy or I if you have any questions or are looking to partner with anyone. We're always interested in hearing your ideas, and a lot of the partnerships and work we've done with communities have come from the communities themselves, and then we've worked together to make it happen. So These are just some examples of some of the things we've done over the past 30 years, and always looking for new things to do. I don't know, Tammy, if you wanted to say anything else there, and then I can stop sharing my screen.
No, you go ahead, stop sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, thanks. And I know a lot of our partnerships is quite critical. And, thanks, Simon, for, connecting and saying, what can we do for educators and ultimately students? Because I don't know, my personal view is that this work has to be done as a community. And you want to bring folks together to do this work as community. So thanks for bringing us here, Simon.
Well, thank you very much. That was amazing. Other than the fact that I love Simon the scientist, but he's amazing. And I encourage everybody to look on his YouTube channel. But I really see this as a beginning of a relationship for all of you that are viewing this today. I would encourage you to reach out to both Tammy and Joanna. And what would you suggest, Joanna or Tammy, as the next step for everybody? Email you or connect on, what would be the next step?
Joanna's going to let me talk. You better be careful, Joanna. I was going to say, feel free to email. I always encourage email. Sometimes it's nice to have a face and a name that can say, hey, I was part of your webinar, I may inspire, or whatever, and to start building that relationship that way. Or just jump on our website and kind of start signing up for like the newsletters or the programs is another great way to kind of just get your feet wet. Yeah, so either or, I accept. Emails are always fun and ways to chat, ways to connect.
I just put them in the chat here too, so you have them right away.
Okay. Well, thank both of you. That was amazing. So we're going to hear more from you in the future. We've got our conference coming up on February 12th and 13th, and it's virtual. And we were talking about having you do a couple of presentations that are not just virtual, but actually in a classroom. So we're going to try to do some magic around that about programming in First Nations schools. So we'll be actually in a First Nations classroom, maybe not in the bush, but a video from the bush because February is pretty cold. And then last year, Let's Talk Science sponsored an award for First Nations schools with outstanding Indigenous STEM programs. And we'll be sending out information on that probably in early December. So if you feel your school is a champion in this area, we're encouraging everybody to submit a recommendation for your school to be receiving the Let's Talk Science Award. And also encouraging you to, if you're not a member, become a member. It's free. So we're trying to expand our membership up to 300 or 400 new members this year. So we're trying to get the message out on Let's Talk Science, STEM, and improving the performance of our students in First Nations schools. So I think that's it. And we got 15 seconds left. So thanks everybody. I didn't say hello to all of you, but personally, but you can email me too. And Randy, hello, I'm glad you got on. Randy's been a big supporter of FDAA over the years. So Big Witch, thank you.